Hi, I'm Nadia, and today I'm going to explore just how much most of us really know about World War II. It was the greatest conflict in human history, involving almost every country in the world. But for most of us these days, World War II has become synonymous with the Holocaust and Hitler's appalling genocide of the Jewish people. The number of Jews who died in the war was about 6 million. So right away we can see that the Holocaust wasn't the whole story of the war. Far from it, because about 85 million people died. 85 million people. It's just such a mind-boggling figure. So to try and put that in some context, that would be equivalent to a disaster on the scale of 9/11, happening every single day for 78 years. Just imagine that. So who were these other 80 million people that we hear almost nothing about? Well, let's test you with a quick pub quiz. Do you know which country had the highest number of deaths during World War II? The country that had the highest number of casualties was the USSR, who had 24 million deaths. Of these, about 8 million were soldiers who fought at the bloody Eastern Front against Germany in some of the most awful battles that were seen during the whole war. The majority of this number, though, are civilians, and many of these people died during the winter of 1942 to 1943. And amongst the most bloody battles of all was the Siege of Stalingrad, which is shown in this photograph. People were trapped in the city and they were sitting ducks for bombing raids, about 1,000 conducted every day by the Luftwaffe. And if they managed to survive that, they were likely to die from frostbite, gangrene, hypothermia, starvation, or some ghastly epidemic like dysentery, tuberculosis, or typhus. Casualties under these horrific conditions were high on both sides. So here's my second question for you. Do you know which country had the second highest death rate in World War II? Now, I might have sneakily lured you into thinking that the answer to that question was Germany, but if that's what you thought, then you were wrong, because the country with the second highest death toll was China, with 20 million. China, like the Soviet Union, was an ally of the West during the war. And in fact, the war started in 1937 in China, when Japan invaded the country and took control of Beijing and Shanghai. And this photograph shows the Japanese soldiers in the rubble of Shanghai. China received aid from America under the Lend-Lease Act, and America imposed a trade embargo on Japan to reduce its military capability. And this was one of the reasons for its attack on Pearl Harbor. Of the 20 million Chinese dead, again, the vast majority of these were civilians. And again, most of the deaths were caused by starvation and disease. Although between them, the Soviet Union and China constitute more than half of the global deaths during the war, we hear much less about them than we do about the Holocaust. And why exactly this is, I'm not sure. But I can only imagine that it was because after the war, the relationship between the West and these countries, which were allies during the war, It deteriorated sharply during the 50-year Cold War, and perhaps due to the hostility that was felt towards those countries, we had little sympathy for the suffering that they had endured. If we look across at all the other countries that suffered large numbers of casualties, we can see that Germany and Poland came next, followed by Japan and India. So these countries together account for 65 of the 85 million deaths during the war. But these countries vary enormously in size, so really we should express the rates as a fraction of their pre-war populations. And when you present the statistics in this way, you can see that the Soviet Union is again in the top 2 worst affected countries. But in first place is Poland. Poland was also an ally of the West during the war, and of course it was the invasion of this country that triggered World War II. After the war, Poland became a Soviet satellite state. This was against the wishes of its people, who saw the Soviet Union as their sworn enemy. The suffering in Poland is hard to imagine, and the people living in East Poland particularly endured terrible suffering. There were multiple waves of occupation by both Germany and the Soviet Union as their warring armies rampaged back and forth across this territory. At the end of the war, its decimated population were left to rebuild a country in which about half of its buildings had been destroyed. And the country is still recovering from the war to this day. After the war, Germany received $3 billion for reconstruction from America, while Poland, who was the victim of the aggression, was also offered aid. It received not one penny because the Soviet Union blocked the American assistance. The scale of the suffering during this war is just impossible to comprehend. In future videos, I'll be telling you the human stories about some of the people who survived it. If you've learned something new, please give me a like below and subscribe to my channel so you can check out my other videos.